Well, good evening. Good evening. What? Well, we're all screwed up here. I should say good afternoon to most folks here. Hopefully, you're into that time zone thing. Welcome to another Brew and Activate. I have to say my apologies first and foremost. Having shift, my schedule just kind of got a hold of me and took control, and so we had to move today's usual live stream that happens every morning, 10 a.m. Eastern Time to 3 p.m. But I have a great audience. We both have great audiences here and subscriber base who are able to adjust and have no problem hanging out with us. So we appreciate all you guys and thank you guys for hanging out with another Brew and Activate. So with that, let's just start into the pleasantries. I'm Eric, N1JUR, and I'm with...
I'm Shannon, KC1OHT here in the US, or 2 Echo Zero Oscar Hotel Tango in the United Kingdom.
Whew. Okay. You gotta figure out how to shorten that up a little bit. Well, maybe you are first here. Check this out here. Well, we are your Park POTA guides, your mentors and lovers of all things POTA. So like we said, good afternoon, folks. And welcome to everybody in the chat. So we've got a bunch of things that we're going to talk about today, but I wanted to catch a few folks up on some stuff because I know we made mention to it last week, but we're going to do it again. So I just want to let folks know that obviously, if you haven't had a chance to get in and submit your shacks for the shack roast for over at Live Free and Ham, we're getting near towards the end. So, this is your time, whether you're a POTA activator and your shack's outdoors or you're a mobile guy or girl, all of them account, all of them fit in, and we want you to be part of it because we've got a couple of tricks to sleeve, a lot of things to give away. And at the same time, you get the coveted champion for each of the, areas. So go over and check that out. You can definitely look at that. And that's over at Live Free and Ham at .com. 2025. Oh my gosh. I don't have the link. Where did that go? My notes just always up and forget or lose here, but I'll post that in the link in the chat there. So if folks, want to go over and head over, you can head over to Live Free and Ham on the main page itself. Is the link there, and you can find all the information and submit your shack. So with that, that's one thing. And then obviously, because, why not? We just love, if you love us already now with this stream, you're going to love us again. Shannon and I will be over on Northeast Ham Radio tonight at 7 p.m. We're going to be doing all things thankful and a bunch of really kind of cool things Mike has got planned for us. He's going to be the MC for tonight. So looking forward to hanging out with Shannon and obviously all those guys over there. So if you haven't, head over to any one of our, channels there, myself, Shannon's, Live Free and Ham's, the link's there. And you can always check us out and make sure, you come be a part of the conversation because I'm sure it's going to be a fun topic tonight. Are you ready for what you're thankful for, Shannon?
I am, but it's a surprise.
Good, because I'm not. I'm sure I'm going to be in there, pre-planning the last, 3 or 4 seconds. Remember, oh yeah, I could talk about that because I'm not running the show, so I don't have to worry about it. So all good. All right. Well, with that, so before we kind of get into all of our usual, how's things going with you, Shannon? I mean, any interesting POTA, things happening over the past couple of weeks or a week? Well, actually a week.
Nah, it's been pretty cold, so
Yeah.
I haven't gone out to POTA. I've been a bad ham. Naughty,
Well,
naughty. I've been focusing on other hobbies. For those of you who don't know, I am a collector of hobbies. One of my other hobbies is knitting and crochet. So I've been working on some knitting, getting some gifts made for people for Christmas because, the best gifts come from the heart.
That they do for sure. And are you going to be doing an Etsy store where you can do, your crochet pattern covers for like HF radios and that type of stuff? Because I've seen a few, I don't know where I've seen them, but I've heard of folks comment
Listen,
on them.
okay, those jokes have already been made, so you're late, old man.
I am. Sorry, my apologies. I'll get better jokes next time. Cool. Well, yeah, for me, I'd have to say, I have been really struggling, obviously, because we had to shift today's episode from our usual time slot to later in the day. Work has just been getting the best of me. I have literally got antennas flowing out of my truck that I have to do reviews on and get stuff done. And just every time I get to a point of like, I'm going to go activate or I'm going to go do this, or whatever project I'm working on, something gets in the way. So if anybody knows how to get rid of work, but still make money, let me know. I mean, outside of robbing a bank or, winning the lottery, if there's some other methods out there that are easy wins, low hanging fruit, send me an email and we can talk after. But yeah, it seems to be the consensus there. Everybody is going nuts and trying to do as much as they can. So, all right. Well, with that, let's waste no more further time and get into our usual here. So we always like to start off with the POTA Minute. All right. Well, I do have to say, Shannon, Jabberjaw Shannon, has a very good, feedback on that comment I last made. Yeah, retire is an option. However, you have to have You have to have money in your retirement to be able to retire, especially with my, grandiose plans. So if you can come up with another option, I'm all ears. All right. So this is the POTA Minute. And so today is going to be a simple layup, but I just want to let folks know if maybe this is the first time you're watching or checking us out, I appreciate you coming hanging out. The POTA Minute is kind of, a place where we talk about for whatever, that leads me into, conversations. Maybe you've, ran into a question on a forum or on the discords for POTA or whatever, or maybe you're just struggling with something. This is kind of one of those things or one of those areas that I'm hoping we can, bring it to light, share, and I can kind of give you a little bit of an update on, maybe how you can solve, a problem, hopefully in a minute, otherwise.
Eric, can I just jump in here? Do you realize
Yeah.
that you're sharing your Discord screen right now and it's like our
Oh,
private personal conversations?
dang it. Thank you for that. I am sharing it. I was sharing it on purpose, but for the wrong reasons. Thank you. Well, those know that Shannon and I, we have an open conversations, but
Yeah,
all good. All right. There we go.
nothing
So
untoward, just
yes. So yeah, you've seen behind the screens now. See, this is what I get for doing it later in the day instead of the first thing in the morning when I'm fresh and I'm on my third cup of coffee and I just don't have enough sleep today. Sorry. All right. Well, getting back to where we were. Sorry about that. So we're going to talk a little bit about a Discord that I like to hang out in a lot, and hopefully you too as well. This one is something I feel it doesn't always get a lot of love, and so maybe I'll throw out the question, maybe to you, Shannon. Do you hang out in the POTA Discord at all?
I'm in many a Discord. The POTA Discord may not be one that I'm in.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, then you're
Maybe I
missing
need to
out.
get in there.
Yeah, it's an interesting group, and it tends to be, let me say, on the scale of major dumpster fire to actually a good resource, it's a pretty good resource. I find that the admins that run that run a really good Discord. It's very helpful. But the one thing that I feel that it's really useful, at least, is that maybe you're like, getting new into the POTA hobby and you're like, hey, I'd love to go buy some gear. And, I'm looking for, say, a 599 or I'm looking for an 891, but you don't have the budget to pay for something brand new. Well, we can always scour every other Discord or maybe the QRZ, forums and that type of stuff or eham.net. And you just never know because you always kind of feel, at least I feel like when I go to those places and I look at gear, I feel a little slimy because I never know whether or not I'm getting a good quality radio or I'm getting exactly what's stated there or whatever. And so I was always looking for a resource. And so I found that the POTA Discord is probably one of the greatest resources, obviously, for POTA related stuff, but they have a really good swap. And what I'm finding is that a lot of Discord you go to, people will post stuff, but then you'll never get an update as to whether the item's sold or whether the item's been taken off. They are on the ball with this stuff. And I find a lot of stuff that gets posted here, you're going to get good deals on because a lot of those guys that are posting those equipment, they've been tested in the field. They know they're good. They treated them well, but in essence, you're going to get a fair price 9 times out of 10. And I found some really good deals here for 891s, for 7300s, and everything kind of in the POTA realm. So my POTA minute today is just, heck, if you're not part of the Discord for POTA, get on over there, join, be part of that. And then the other piece is if you're looking for some gear, I have a feeling you're going to enjoy in the transaction in finding maybe a piece of equipment that you might need or you've been searching for, because the POTA community is a great group of people, and I'm sure they'll give you both a fair deal, but at the same time, you're going to get something that's been loved and something that's definitely been put to field tests and is in probably very good shape, more than something you see on eham.net or QRZ or whatever. So yeah, that's my POTA minute. All right. Anything? No, actually, we don't have anything. I'm going to, basically touch upon real quick those folks that might know. We do the POTA bucket list. And so I'm just going to keep promoting this. We haven't had any entries this week. So I am totally, kind of a little bummed, but no big deal. It's been a really busy couple of weeks. But yeah, the POTA bucket list for us is a great kind of grassroots thing that I'm trying, where we're going to try to see if we can encourage one another and submit, 5 or 10 POTA tasks you want to get done for your, POTA adventures, bucket list, updates, whatever be the case. We want to, support one another. And the idea is that we're going to post these lists, and then, the goal will be to get together, constantly stay in touch with one another, kind of build a little bit of a mini community. But with the goal in mind that, we're helping one another trying to achieve our goals. So whether you're trying to shoot for your N1CC, or maybe you're trying to learn Morse code and use it out in the, when you do an activation, this is a great way to be able to submit that list and then have those folks that are part of this community, support you and give you encouragement and help you along the way. And so that's kind of what the POTA bucket list is all about. So if you haven't, definitely head on over to n1jur.com/POTA bucket list. And I'll post that link in there. Or Shannon, if you got it, go ahead and throw it in there. I should just let you do that since you are my MC. Now that you have control. Come join, be a part of it, submit it. And if you've gotten some new updates, definitely submit them so we can make sure we keep this going. And stay tuned, because we will have more information on future gatherings on, online, that type of stuff. And so, looking forward to kind of seeing what comes out of it. All right. Well, with that, let's go back to our usual views here. Today, anything, actually, before we dive into anything in the chat that I meant to miss, because I know it's flying by and I hear you pounding on your keyboard.
Yeah, Ham Radio Hef became a member of the channel. He joined, so thank
Very
you for
cool.
that, Ham Radio Hef.
Awesome.
Let me see. Who was it? Somebody up there, they said, it was Mark Turner, said your local friendly club is good for swaps too, which is, very true. I have been given for free things that I've been looking for. When I first got licensed, a great group of hams actually gave me a Kenwood TM255, which is a 2-meter radio that does SSB, and I heard that's an extremely desirable radio for that reason. Another friend of mine, K1TT, he gave me like a beautiful Morse code paddle and some, code oscillator practice thingies. So definitely, visit your local club and, kind of let them know what you're looking for. And a lot of times hams, they just have all this extra stuff and they want someone to be using it.
Yeah, 100%. That is always a thing that I see, where even in our own club, things people will just bring in brand new HTs, brand new, kind of mobile rigs, and, say, hey, give it to the new ham in the club, or, do whatever you need to do to be able to get this in the hands of some ham that, can put it to good use. So yeah, definitely a good resource for sure. Okay, well, with that, let's kind of dive into our topic today. So I'm sure if you've come here, you probably saw the thumbnail, and or maybe you're just a regular, and we totally love you for being here either way. But today we're going to talk about, and actually this is another listener submitted suggestion from our Discord. And so if you have never been over at our Discord, we invite you and encourage you. If you head over to our Live Free and Ham Discord, there is a couple of um, what's the word I'm looking at? Channels that we have that we run for N1JUR, as well as the channel for Brew and Activate. And so I'll throw that really quickly in there. There's the link for the Discord if you haven't been a part of that, or maybe you're just checking it out for the first time and you want to head on over there. Yeah, come be a part of it. There is a lot of great conversation and topics coming from there. And again, we always have a listener kind of submitted section 2 as well. So if you've got something you want us to kind of dive into, we'll definitely make sure, we always watch that and keep in check with that. And so we'll add that to our list. And, we always kind of just rotate through some topics. I've got stuff that I could talk about till the cows come home, but I'm always interested in doing something that little stretches me or puts me into a little bit more of a kind of research mode. So all good with that. And so so today is, like I said, a listener submitted topic again. And the topic for today is oh my gosh, so many notes. I gotta shorten these things up. All right. So it's how to add POTA to your local club. Now, Shannon, you're obviously part of a local club where you're at, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, how, like, when you joined the club, was it pretty POTA, focused, or did they not do it at all? Or did you bring POTA to them, or how kind of, what did that look like for you?
No, the club that is an actual club that you like pay dues for, we have not done a group POTA yet.
Wow.
I must admit, but the groups that I do POTA with, we are not an official club per
Hmm.
se.
Okay.
We one of them we do have a club call sign with the ARRL and the FCC,
Hmm.
and that is the Pocahontas Amateur Radio Club, the guys from the PokeNet.
All
And
right.
we have done a group POTA. And then, of course, I have my wonderful people. That's wonderful people, the Adventures in Wonderland crew. And we've met up for many POTAs.
Yeah, yeah, you guys do quite often. I usually now that I randomly get a invite to that Discord, I'm sure that was you. And I've been in there, and I pop in there from time to time, and there's always something interesting going on. And I just schedule wise, I just never can get it right, but I'd love to be able to join in next time you guys do something.
And of
Do something
course, I've
virtual.
done POTA with Live Free and Ham, which is,
Yeah,
sort of a club within a club because it's part of GSARA, right?
yeah.
Which I
Well,
am also a member of GSARA. So
You are for sure. And, the funny thing with POTA and clubs is before we sort of did Live Free and Ham, I did POTA very early on, and I brought that kind of to my club. And we'll kind of go into giving you some tips and tricks in that area because I know you could probably, glean some good little tidbits from, this small little mini lesson here. But the idea is really just to not give up, I think, is the bottom line I want to take away from this. Is like if you're in a club and you've got a lot of, we'll say stubborn curmudgeons that are like, oh, we only do coffees on Saturday morning and we do breakfasts on Friday and then we have our club meeting and we just talk about electronics, you know, don't fret. My encouragement today is going to be to give you some insights to be able to, kind of come in and let's partner. Let's show them and help them along the way that, hey, this thing called POTA that you might have been hearing about that maybe annoys you when you're on 20 meters because you can't have a rag chew because a POTA station is just, a couple of kilohertz up or below you. Um, you know, might be something you want to kind of, encourage. So yeah, let's kind of dive in here. So I'm gonna do my usual whiteboard session,
um,
and
are you the kind of person that makes like lists of lists?
a little bit, yes. I love my list. If you know me, I am very much a list driven kind of person. I like the feel of check marks. Although I have a hard and fast rule when it comes to lists, I don't add like a task that I'm in the middle of on my list to be able to check it off 3 seconds ago. That's just evil, pure evil, right there. I mean, that there's no excitement to that.
I almost, I feel like this is almost like elementary school, and the teacher would be like, "Okay, now we're gonna brainstorm," and they're like, the kids are just yelling out things, and the teacher's just writing them up on the board.
Well,
We're
if we could ultimately
brainstorming
have
ideas of POTA, how to get your club into POTA right now.
Yep.
So
You
if you
don't need
want
to
to
yell,
go,
Shannon, first and foremost. It's just you and I in this conversation. Let's set that level.
I'm
Second of
very
all,
excited right now. I'm very
good. That's
excited
awesome.
for the brainstorming.
I
So
I know
if
because
you and
you have one
Kat,
criteria, one criteria with yours, and that's like the funny thing is I did after I did my outline, and I'll go over some. I threw it at Chat GPT to see what it spit out. You know what that very first criteria was? Exactly what you said. Yeah, we all have to have food.
yes,
so
yes,
so we
that
can
is
end it
like,
here.
you know, if you feed people, they will come.
That is true.
So if that is coffee and donuts and munchkins, if you're doing a morning thing, or like we did with the Adventures in Wonderland crew, we like ordered pizza from down the street and went and picked it up and brought it to the picnic table, and we had pizza and POTA. And that could
Hmm.
be like the title of
Yep.
your, POTA outing. Pizza and POTA. It goes together.
Very much so. And, I'll share an interesting story on the side that we'll get to a little ahead of this, but our biggest POTA meetup that we ever did in our club was, guess what? When we had burgers and hot dogs for the event. Like, I literally just set up a grill, and we were like in the middle of fall, and it was probably the coolest day in fall that we ever had. And we had literally over 60 people show up for one POTA event. It was
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, so, and I was actually gonna bring up, this group of guys, right, down in Weymouth. They're called the Great Hill Gang. Maybe, some of these One Land people, Massachusetts people have heard of them. They're actually one of the first groups that I ran into when I first got licensed. They're the guys that gave me the Kenwood radio. So they meet one Saturday a month for a day of radio, basically like no matter what. Unless, the weather's real bad, they change it to a different week. But every time they do that, somebody brings a grill, they bring some dogs, some burgers, some sausages, whatever it is. And, it's like field day once a month for these
Yep.
guys.
It,
So,
Very much so. That is exactly it. Like they have very good childhood fond memories of their field days, and it always is around food. I can very much attest to that. Once a year, it was always like, "Oh, what are we gonna have for food on top of like playing radio all day? What better can happen?" So, well, let's get into some of the details here. So, yeah, as Shannon said, I love my little whiteboard sessions. I am not a teacher by trade, so don't bother to credit me the stuff. But I'm going to say that this going along the same lines that I say every week is that we're putting together a Bible field guide for POTA. And so you can always head over to n1jor.com. There's a link up at the top called the POTA Field Guide. And there's where I'm putting up some of the stuff that we talk about week in, week out. And the idea is that we're eventually going to transfer that to a wiki once I get the wiki built up. And the idea is to really just kind of build this field guide for POTA. And there's already plenty of full resources out there that already help, kind of explain what POTA is. And we're not trying to take away from that. We're trying to build more of exactly, similar to, ARL put out a book about POTA. It was a good book. But in essence, for me, it's like kind of static. It's not ever to be evolving. I want to create something that everybody can use, that we can all come to. And if maybe you're a brand new POTA activator, or maybe you're starting to get into hunting and you're like, well, hey, I have a question about so-and-so. Well, more than likely that field guide is going to be a great way to be able to reference information. But at the same time, some people can add to it, and you can keep it evolving and forever going. And keep it evergreen. So that's kind of my goal with this. And so this is just going to be another one that we can contribute to this list and helping people out in getting more POTA in your club. So I kind of can speak from this firsthand because I started back in, the hobby as a COVID ham, although I was licensed way before that. And you can check my website out if you ever want to get my backstory. But I came into it, and I, at that point, was already started into POTA, and nobody in the club knew what POTA was. They had no idea. They're like, what are you talking about? And I was like, okay, well, if I'm the only one person that really has any POTA sense, like, how am I going to help these people understand how cool this is and how they need to start doing it? And like I said, you're going to run into your curmudgeons. You're going to run into the people that just, their negative spin on everything. And I have to say, when I first started with that stuff and getting into POTA and trying to get people more excited about it, yeah, there were a lot of negative voices more than a lot of the positive ones. But once you dragged them out in the field, my gosh, you'd think you were giving them like the keys to the kingdom, and showing them that they're a one of those rare D expeditions, and people are just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So let's get into it. So with starting your club here, and let me go to my notes here so I can bring things up here. So really trying to get POTA into your club, that if you're part of it and you're an active member, and so I should phrase it in the sense, it's usually good to be an active member. So make sure your dues are caught up, make sure you're kind of building relationship in general and being part of a club. Don't just kind of go into a blind club doing this, because you will basically get thrown out and pushed back a lot, unless they're already very much into POTA. But the idea is to really just give these clubs that have been doing the same stuff over and over again something new and fun to do anytime. It's not like field day where, how many clubs you can raise, your hand, and how many clubs do you do winter field day? How many clubs do summer field day? What do you do during the rest of the year? Nothing. This is one of those things that I think gives a lot more people an opportunity to get out and be part of nature and do everything that we all love about POTA. It definitely boosts participation. I have to say, from my own experience, once people started kind of latching onto it, it was like all of a sudden I became the POTA guy, and like everybody's going to go talk to Eric because he knows everything about it. And to be truthfully honest, that was a little scary, but at the same time, it was pretty cool, because I was like, I always started out with like, I might not have all the answers, but here, let me show you what I got, and let me show you what I've done. And I'm still learning. So that just kind of made things easier for people that, didn't have to feel all scared about something and try it out. It definitely gets the people out of the Zoom meetings. I mean, how many times have we all heard or seen the YouTube videos out there? I think they come out like on a repeat every year. Oh, clubs are dying. Clubs are garbage, blah, blah, blah. Get off the Zoom, kind of thing. Well, this is a perfect way to be able to, kind of institute something like that and get people out and start doing ham radio. Clubs need to start doing what they're basically commissioned for. They are ham radio clubs. Why do we feel like Robert's Rules of Order is so more important than ham radio? I don't know. You feel that way, Shannon?
Yeah, I don't know what to say about that.
Okay. Don't. I
Because
know.
what I have to say might get me in a little bit of trouble, so.
Well, okay. Well, you can scrub it then if you feel like. I'll give you a couple minutes to scrub it, clean and void of all names and serial numbers and call signs. So, put it this way. Here on Brew and Activate, again, everybody's on the same level playing field. So even though, we might rub you the wrong way, maybe you're on the other side of the fence and you just kind of joined in here and been a part of this conversation, take a look at it from a different angle. Because in essence, POTA's here to stay. And if you want it part of your club, then this is a great way and a good introduction. But if you don't, then that's totally fine, because I know clubs that are out there, they're just DX focused, or they're just, party centric kind of clubs where they only meet like once a year, or some are just repeater clubs. So that's totally fine. And then kind of the last two things I was thinking of, it's big technician friendly. And I know a lot of YouTubers and hams in general always push people towards getting their general. I understand why, and I think it's important, but I don't know about you, Shannon. Were you on 10 meters at all today?
No.
Oh my gosh.
But I bet it was amazing.
It was. And guess who was, a lot of the contacts that I know of were on 10 meters. A lot of technicians. I worked a few. I worked a couple of brand new technicians who just got their license on 10 meters. So there are people out there, there are voices. And when those bands are open, where do the new technicians flock to? Well, they can do it on 10 meters now. And so, I highly encourage. This is one way to, we'll say, start the ball rolling. If you've been on Live Free and Ham and you've been with us for a while, you might have heard Todd's story about how I forced him to get his general, and how he was very thankful for me doing it, but he was forced to get his general because he couldn't do POTA otherwise. And he could have done it anyway, because I always let him use my call sign. But yeah, it was always a goal for him to be able to get into POTA. And then once, he got his general, I mean, my gosh, I can't get the guy to stop talking about POTA, which is not a bad thing. So, and then, like I mentioned before, like, we don't have to wait once a year. We don't have to wait for Winterfield Day. We don't have to wait for summer field day to get out there and make some noise on the air and become the DX. Like growing up, and this is going to date me. And so for those that might not know, I had my license back in 93. And so that was when I was a high school, sophomore. And I only had a no-code technician. I couldn't even operate on 10 meters. They would only allow me on 10 meters as CW. And I hated CW because I was no-code tech. But the only time I could ever get on the air, anytime I wanted, was during field day and winter field day. And my club, literally, I can tell you, they have pictures of me probably in their archives on their website of me just being at the console at every waking hour. Like, I mean, they literally had to pull the mic away from me because I was like, that was the only time I could be on HF. And I was like, I got to be here. So, it fills the need. And so you will definitely get more people interested because now they can feel like they can make noise out in the air. They can make contacts. They can start to get back into the radio hobby that they loved. All right. So let me take a breath here because, I'm getting worked up.
So here's
Ladies,
so
yeah,
I
go ahead.
think here's what I'm gonna say about what I was thinking earlier, right? Is that so people say that like ham radio clubs are dying or whatever, but people also say that ham radio is dying. But what do we always say is that it's not dying, it's just kind of changing and evolving, right? So, we talk about, Discord. All of us here, we spend probably a fair amount of time on Discord. And let's not discount that those Discords, although they may not be, ARRL registered ham radio clubs, some of them are. They, are like our own little online ham radio clubs, right?
Yeah.
And, what is a club but a bunch of people that like to do the same activity together? So, if your club is not interested in the same things that you're interested in, then, and you can't get them interested in the same things that you're interested in, maybe they're not the right club for you. Nobody says you have to join the club that's closest to your house. I'm not in the club that's closest to my house. I went to a club that was a little bit further away. Now, some
Mhm.
people in that club are interested in POTA. We haven't done a club POTA since I've been there, but a lot of people are not interested in POTA. Nobody says you have to only be in one club either. I'm in at least two ham radio clubs, and one of which likes to do POTA. So, it's kind of about finding the right club that is a good fit for you, but also, educating your club about what POTA is and isn't, because I think a lot of people still have these misconceptions surrounding POTA that it's a contest
Yeah.
and some they don't like it because you don't rag chew, or whatever it is that they have against POTA. But really, POTA is whatever you want it to be, right? If you want to rag chew and not ever call CQ POTA, that's fine, because you can do that and you can still play radio out in nature in the park. And, nobody has to know that you're on a POTA.
Yeah. 100%. And I would say to someone, and this tends to be kind of where I look at this from, um, if you're in your local area and maybe you don't have any other, like, I mean, you're obviously part of the online communities because I think that's a very easy way to plug in and be part of those activities, but you might be looking for someone who's a little bit more local that can kind of like you can share and bounce off each other and play with each other's gear and do all of those activations, which I think is that human connection that we that all of us POTO folks love. I mean, I can't tell you how many people I know that I could count on my hand that would just say, no, I don't want to go with somebody. I want to go by myself. Like I have never bumped into a POTA operator that's ever said, yeah, no, I'm good. Yeah. You go do your own thing. Don't bother me. No, it's never like that. And so I find that POTA has been very welcoming in that sense. So it's kind of important to find maybe one or two individuals, even if they're in the club, but they are not like, they haven't, say, maybe made the leap to get into POTA. My experience is that I was bringing something that was a little foreign to folks and, relatively, maybe kind of new to a few folks. They might have heard about an NPOTA at the time, or they might have participated that one time and they were good with it. but I was bringing kind of a fresh view. And so I kind of said, okay, I want this to stick in this club because I know it's like good. I know it can help, and I know it can, bring more unity and more people in and bring some excitement back to a club that might be a little dormant. So with that mindset, I was like, okay, I know I'm going to deal with people that might have a different opinion. I might have to deal with the leadership in the club that have, a different opinion, but it's okay. In essence, don't feel like, you have to solve the world's problems, as they say, in the first day. You've got plenty of time as long as you prove who you are and stay strong. A lot of the stuff that I'm talking about today will be very helpful in moving, your POTA forward in the club you're a part of. And so starting with that, these are just simple, practical kind of goals. You got anything in the chat there before we kind of dive into them? Or?
No, they're just arguing about whether or not POTA is a contest, which it's not a contest. We all know it's not a contest.
It's a contest to get the most contacts in that moment. Trust me, I have a competition every time I sit next to somebody and they're like, well, how many more can you get?
That's what Shannon says. She says it's not a contest unless like hubby and I competing against each other for who gets ahead. So
those two, we constantly hear every chat, every episode, like, oh, you're out in the park. Why aren't you working?
There is no contest. We know that us YLs get that extra 60B of gain. We win every time.
We need to fix that. It's unfair. That's why we need more. We need a lot more women in ham radio.
Yes,
that way we now can.
I will agree.
Oh man, you're gonna make me play the clip here. I should.
That we'll play it later for Northeast Ham Radio.
Right. Well, no, we can just kick it off now. Is it gonna play for me? Come on. Of course, it's not gonna play for me today. Oh well.
CQ Singapore, CQ Singapore, November 3, Mike Foxtrot Lima calling CQ Singapore with N1JUR calling CQ Singapore, CQ Singapore.
Yes, Tortoise, he didn't get any more contacts after that. Let me just point that out in advance. So you cannot fake a YL's voice. That's the other thing.
No. Often duplicated, but never replicated.
Yep, exactly. All right, so let's start with the first kind of tip here. And again, these are simple, practical things you can try. First thing, obviously, let's make this low stress. Don't make it more complex than it needs to be. Do an open house. Like I started to kind of, engage people with what I did in POTA with some of the club members. So as you kind of mingle and talk to folks and introduce yourself and make friends, start to let them know you do POTA. Start to, give them opportunities to ask questions and kind of converse with you. And then you can kind of get a feel as to whether or not you're ready for that next step, because as you're planting seeds, they take a little while to grow, as they say. And so, if you're there a couple of club meetings, get people to know who you are, get a little familiar, and then start the, hey, I do POTA, and you might get the question. It's like, oh, hey, you start the ball rolling and the conversation kind of unfurls, and you can be like, well, hey, I was thinking let's do a POTA open house. And really all a POTA open house is what we also refer to as kind of like a meetup. And really all you have to just, think in simple terms is go out to your local park, because I'm sure, if you've got club, if your club's in the local area, I'm sure there's on the POTA map, there's a very close by park, set up, in a very convenient place, a pavilion, somewhere, everybody can kind of gather if, the weather turns bad kind of things. But really just, if you've got one other person that's you can piggyback with this. And even if you don't, you can basically just use these kind of 4 key areas to kind of plan out your POTA open house. And so I'd say bring a couple of radios and antennas. And with that, some of the accoutrement you might have to, bring with you. I know in the chat there was a couple of comments about bringing bandpass filters and things like that. Is my video skipping again?
I don't think so.
Okay. All right. It looks like it was skipping to me, but we'll keep plugging away. If it gets really bad, let me know in the chat. So the first thing is bring a couple of radios. Like you don't need more than 1 or 2, and they should probably be barefoot. It should run 100 watts. bring yourself a, buddy pole or a wire antenna, something you can set up relatively easy. And, keep it very simple. Then, when you finally get folks to show up as you kind of introduce, to the club and you say, hey, come by, stop by, check things out. Rotate through the operators. If folks want to jump in and they want to give their hand at it, I would say 100%, if you get a second, write a script out. A script is always super important. It kind of helps people follow a flow, especially if they have never done, say, an activation or been part of a said pileup. It will help them feel like they can, navigate through the process or sit next to them and be the example. And, don't be afraid to kind of help people along the way, let them ask questions, because what will happen, at least for the first one you do, is it'll be more kind of question and answer, people standing back, them observing, kind of figuring things out. But ultimately they'll be, that much more understanding of, what's going on, and don't be there to think you're going to really make an activation. Like that's the one tip I could say, throw it in the ring. If you're going to do this open house or this meetup, don't expect yourself to sit there and activate the park and ignore everybody else, because you got to activate the park. If you have to activate the park, wait till it's all done after whatever time frame you set it for, and go activate the park, your own, just so you can get your 10 contacts and get it in the log. But be there and be available for folks to ask questions, to seek you out, to do all of the things. And you probably won't, at least the first initial time, get a lot of folks on the radio. A lot of people will kind of stand back. So if you feel led, you can grab somebody, bring them along and walk them through it, a call in CQ or hunting or whatever be the case. Feel free to chime in anything if you got anything as I'm talking through this, Shannon, because I know these are just some of the high level stuff I put together, but I'm sure, if we trigger something, throw it out there.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, maybe, so you're having this like POTA open house, POTA meetup, which is basically, kind of how I did it with the PokeNet guys when they, one of the newer members who was a technician, he expressed an interest in POTA. He wanted to know what it was and what it was all about. And he heard me talking about it and one of the other guys talking about it. So we, decided to set up our POTA open house. But, so he came as a new person, but we also had, other experienced POTA people too. So it was kind of just like that, where he was a little mic shy and, didn't want to get on the air at first. But then, so he saw us more experienced people making the contacts, and we kept asking him every time, like, here, you want to talk? You want to talk? So eventually he did. He did, after hearing us make contacts, he took the mic and he made a contact, and he started to become more comfortable as he kind of heard how the exchange went. And we did a little bit of a combination of rag chewing and also just kind of giving the signal reports and passing the mic along. So having another person there who's an experienced POTA person helps too, so that those more shy people can kind of watch and see how it goes. And that way, if you have to step away too and, greet people as they come or talk to the public or whatever it is, you have that backup person to stay on the mic and, keep the frequency hot.
Yeah, exactly right. You want to keep the POTA machine rolling if you have that capability. If you're solo, you kind of split more of your time towards the interaction with the people that are coming in attendance more than, the radio and the contacts kind of thing, and treat that as like a little bit nonchalant, with the idea that you're introducing them to the process with the goal that next time you do it again, then at that point, maybe you'll have one or two that, like Shannon said, they'll be able to step in that gap and run the station while you're kind of still doing the introduction and, kind of Q&A for folks. So, all right, last piece, and we obviously alluded to this, and everybody in the chat has pretty much agreed to this. Provide snacks. If you can do snacks, some simple stuff, you don't have to spend a lot of money. And, especially if the club is kind of, there and you're part of a membership, if you can get the executive leadership to, chip in, some snacks or whatever, sodas or waters or stuff like that, then, you can work out the deal. Otherwise, if you can, foot it yourself initially, that's always a win, because you will keep people there longer and they'll want to stay, if they have, if they're somewhat fed or they have something to stick in their, hand or in their mouth while you're, doing the activation. So it definitely, like I said, it lowers that stubbornness factor for sure. And actually it's been technically, calculated. It's literally 40%. So, if you already have someone that's at 60 now, you've already dropped 40%. So now you only have 20% stubbornness. That'll make it easier when you want to get them on the station to activate. So, all right. The next thing here is a quick point is this is kind of a little bit out of order, but I think it is really more, in line with, I think, as you start to do this, and this is a process. And so I'm going to say that over and over and over again here, is because a lot of this is not going to be a one and done thing. You're going to probably want to do this a couple of times. You're going to want to do this, as many times as you can in good weather, and cooler weather. And, the more you get people, or the more you create an opportunity, the more, people will find time in their schedule to be part of it and be engaging. So, keep that in mind, that you might not get the hundreds or tens of people that you want the first time, but, I'm sure the fourth or fifth time you have it, you'll have a lot more. And it'll always kind of start to grow based off of, how much time you invest into it. So this next one is building a grab and go kit. And this is more for your sanity. And you're starting to kind of do these in your club, and, you're doing it not in the confines of an official club thing, but you're just kind of putting it out there, because a lot of clubs will have no problem sharing other resources. A lot of times you'll probably hear this in your own club meetings when you go. They're like, oh yeah, Club XYZ is doing a special event station on blah blah blah, go participate, kind of in that sense. Or you fill in the blank. You've heard it all the time. This is going to be in that same vein. So as you put it out there, feel free to do it obviously within your local club, but don't be stingy in the sense that, not passing it on to other clubs. If there's a couple, like if you're so lucky that you might have 3 clubs in the general 20-mile radius, then put it to all 3, and maybe you'll get more, people involved versus just trying to target one club. But, if you're, have a one club that you just really want to, kind of bring this to them because, like they'll latch onto it once they do, then yeah, it's totally fine to kind of just focus on one area. So build yourself a go kit, and build it literally in a hard shelf case or a go bag, whatever you do. And it's probably already, if you're already doing POTA yourself, you probably already have this style kit. You might have to do a few changes here and there, a few tweaks, just to be able to accommodate longer operating run times, maybe having a CW key with you when you're normally a sideband guy, maybe doing an FT8 set up too as well, because you might have people that are mic shy, they don't want to do sideband, and they don't do Morse code. FT8's another option. So give variety, but have that all in your go kit. So when you make the announcement, hey, we're going to do another POTA meetup on this date and time in this park and this location, then really all you have to do is grab your gear, throw it in the truck or the car the night before, and then you're ready to go. And that includes all your antennas, throw lines, everything you would normally do in your own POTA activation, but do it on the scale of, you're doing this for a larger audience. So, consider doing multiple antennas if you can. If you can do 1 or 2 different antennas, like a vertical and a wire, that's always important. That definitely kind of demonstrates the versatility, but at the same time, it also gives you options and plan Bs, especially when certain things don't happen or work your way in a, say, you come up to a week, and the week before everything was fine, but then guess what? We have a G5 roll through for the week. Consider having options available. It's always important in that sense.
Yeah, that was actually one thing that I forgot when we did our group POTA. Was I said I was going to bring a Morse code key, and then I forgot to bring it. And then one person did ask, like, hey, did you bring that Morse code key? I was like, oh, I forgot it. I'm so sorry. So, definitely having a variety. If you are going to have multiple stations and multiple antennas, though, depending on how many people you anticipate coming, you're definitely going to want band pass filters, or, you're going to want to set the stations up, kind of far away from each other physically, at least the antennas far away from each other, so you hopefully don't cause interference to each other if you have 2 stations going. But being able to show a variety of different ways to activate a park and different modes, I think, is always a fun thing.
Very sure. Very true. Yeah, the one thing you might also run into in this, I didn't really outline that, but Shannon triggered the thought, is that you might be in a club that doesn't do POTA, but you might surround yourself with people who are very active in POTA. And 9 times out of 10, that if you say you're going to do a POTA meetup, they're going to come along. And you know what they're going to do? They're going to bring all their gear with them. So try to coordinate and work with them more than working against them. Because a lot of times, my first time when we did a POTA meetup, we initially said we were going to have 1 or 2 stations, but then there are other people that showed up and set their stations up, and it became this very difficult scenario of trying to figure out who was on 20 and who was not on 20. And no matter how much I thought about bringing bandpass filters, those people didn't obviously bring bandpass filters because their POTA gear probably doesn't include them. I know I don't have bandpass filters in my POTA bag because it's just not a thing I bring. But know who's going to be trying to arrive that might be already an active POTA participant, and help them, maybe get integrated and be one of those stations versus being an outsider. So just kind of food for thought for that. The other stuff I'll leave to your kind of own devices. This is, I think, geared to your own likings and your own, kind of POTA setups and desire of what you want to do. But really the bottom line is reduce the excuses by making it dead simple. And that's really what it is. So don't overcomplicate it. Make it very straightforward. And if you only have one station and you can only do 1 or 2 modes, then make that the goal, and then slowly build onto that when you can get other people to help in the process, because then that makes the workload a lot lighter for sure. All right. The next tip I got here. This one is to consider when I've been up and running and this is maybe say your 4th, POTA meetup, and you've been going at a pretty good clip, and people are already, come on, stop highlighting here. There we go, delete. Okay. And you're realizing that at this point, it's starting to grow. It's starting to take off. It's starting to get legs underneath that. And people are talking more about it. And you're starting to build a little bit of a buzz and an interest. And people then are starting to seek you out. And other people from other clubs may be coming to kind of, see what the hubbub's about and whatever. And you then start acquiring that title of POTA mentor or the POTA wizard, or, fill in whatever descriptor word you want. The idea is you probably want to find 1 or 2 people that, one, either have approached you and said, hey, how can I help? And don't look a gift horse in the mouth, as they say. So if they say, hey, how can I help? Take their word for exactly what they're saying and try to incorporate them in. And this is where this kind of point sticks out for me. It's like, if you've got somebody that you can appoint as and I hate the term POTA captain, but we use it a lot because it's a field day kind of takeaway. Every station has a captain per se to manage the station. Well, think in the same terms, that you can rely on a couple of individuals that they'll be there every time you do this POTA event, or can commit to it, and just have them, kind of take a section of it, take an area, and help them kind of start to take a little bit of ownership. Because I'm going to say this up front. You don't want, as a POTA, the POTA lead or the POTA person in your club, to be the POTA person in your club for the rest of your life. Because in essence, you're not going to be able to free yourself from it. You're not going to be able to enjoy it because it becomes a burden over and over again that you have to do this. So making the roads very early on to work yourself out of a job is way better for you than to just be the guy that everybody, goes to for a POTA event and, to get their POTA fix. Because one thing I've learned in my club is that once we finally got POTA meetups going and people were super excited about it and they were coming along, I was already looking for individuals that could be like, hey, you could do the CW station next time we do this. Or, hey, you could run, bring your radio, do the sideband. Maybe you want to put up antenna. I was, encouraging some of our Aries guys who love to do emergency comms and maybe have a trailer, which is kind of overkill. But I've had a few guys bring their MCOM trailers to set up and do that stuff. And what I've learned from it is like, yeah, sometimes it's a little overkill, but in essence, it's less stress, less burden on you to try to make sure every time you do this event that there's something, that you're covering one specific area. Work yourself out of a job with the intention that you have these other people, these other resources that are just as much as passionate about POTA as you are, taking over a small area, because somebody will always take over a smaller portion of it than the whole thing. Like I've always heard the phrase, not my dumpster fire. Well, there's a lot of truth to that because nobody wants to take somebody else's problems over, but they're willing to help out. And so think in those terms when you're starting to do this, because I don't know about you, but Shannon, obviously you're the Wonders crew. How you guys just kind of do random stuff a lot of times too. It's like a matter of, hey, let's all do a POTA, and you kind of just assemble. It's like, POTA assemble. It's almost like Avengers assemble for you guys a lot, because I see a lot of posts in that sense of stuff going on. But that's just because everybody's got their own little bit of skin in the game, right?
Yeah, it's we don't take it too seriously, I guess. So, I think that last time we got together, it just happened to be Support Your Parks weekend, if I remember correctly. And we were just sort of, like, well, what are people doing? Well, a couple people were going to Great Brook Farm State Park, and then a couple other people, Max and James, were coming to like disassemble some free tower and hex beam that they had gotten. So as they were driving by, they stopped and did the activation with us. And we ended up being what I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We ended up having like 6 people there at one point in time. Not including Miles because he's not licensed. So 7 if you include Miles.
Well, he's technically has 2 calls, kind of, so indirectly.
So, yeah, he's licensed by association.
That's exactly it. So, yeah. So ultimately, that's always a good, kind of thing to keep in the back of your mind. Even though you might be the one kind of leading the charge, consider yourself one to work yourself out of a job with the idea that you're going to be handing it off to someone who might do this a little differently, which is totally fine and totally acceptable, because that's the nature of POTA, is that not everybody does it the same way, but the ultimate goal is to make, have radio, make contacts, and build relationships all along the way, both, in the present of who you're in front of, as well as the people halfway across the, the other end of the RF, as they say. So with that, consider that the long game for you, because that's kind of one thing I want to stress with that, because I have done that in my club, and I'll share a little bit of a story, is that when I started POTA in our club, I started just kind of doing it and talking about it. And I'm sure a lot of the older folks were just like, will Eric ever shut up? That's all he ever talks about is kind of POTA. And then I had the opportunity, and this is kind of one of the things I'll lead into, is I had the opportunity because one of the members of the executive board came to the club and said, hey, do you want to do a presentation on POTA? And I was like, sure, why not? I don't have any prior material. There's nothing out there. I'll just go and talk about my setup and why I do it. And that kind of led me to really just kind of open the floodgates of POTA in our club, because at that point, those that may have kind of heard about it and saw that some bunch of guys and gals over on this side of the club are doing this weird, crazy thing called POTA, they were like, oh, well, now there's, now they've got an official focus, and now they can learn about this stuff and take something away and go process. So this is the next piece, is that once you want to start to integrate POTA into your club culture and do it without pushback, this is kind of where this is how you can kind of do it. And so what I would suggest is, when you start out, if you're still trying to move the needle forward in a club that, is a little bit resistant, try to do it with these couple of tips in mind. If you get an opportunity, and you don't have to do a full long hour presentation or 90-minute presentation or whatever, you're more than welcome to, if you can make it fun and appetizing and appealing. But if you're going to get the opportunity to do a presentation, try to break it down into small chunks if you can. And so I got the opportunity once to initially do a 90-minute presentation, and I think I probably went a lot longer than I needed to. I wish the recording was still around. They, they didn't get a chance to record it, so I never really got a chance to go back and review the tape, as they say. But I think when I left there, a lot of people, were like super excited. So at least they retained the material, and they were like, "Hey, what can I learn more?" So I think when you get a chance, try to give it in bite-sized chunks. So if you get an opportunity in your club, to say to some of the leadership, hey, can I make a 3-minute presentation about our next POTA meetup? And start there. And basically think about it as a way to, as you're already doing them now. And so think in the mindset of like, you've started these POTA meetups and you're just kind of doing this as a grassroots thing. It's not an official anything except the fact that you just get together, meet, eat food, play radio. Once that starts to get going and you got a little traction and people underneath you and helping out in the process, then start this as an engagement into the club. So ask for like a 5-minute, window to present right after their business or whatever they do in their format, and talk about the last POTA activation. Bring photos, do a quick slideshow. If you've got video talent or you got somebody who can do a quick little video, do something like that and just build up the story and really just get people excited, because I can say from experience, and actually just most recent experience, I was talking on a repeater locally here this morning, to one of our members in our club, and we were talking about another outreach community thing that we were doing. And in that, someone had reached out to him and said, "Hey, I'd be really interested in learning more about this. Is there anything you can show me, any photos or pictures or whatever?" Well, we keep all that stuff on our club website because we want to let people experience, from a static standpoint, the last event. And he sent those photos over to them, and the person came back to them and said, "Wow, I really like what's going on. Those photos gave me a really good idea of what's going on and how much fun I could have." And again, that 3-letter word that we all kind of make fun of or have fun with is important. And so capture that. And so if you can capture that, put that in a small little tidbits. And if you've got a great website, great. Have them throw it up on the website as an example, as something to share as the club, and let the club kind of own it. And then really just, try to do that every couple of cycles. So like once a quarter, just try to really keep the POTA machine going. And I hate to use those terms, but, just keep feeding it. And that'll just keep attracting more people, and you'll start to build and build and build. And eventually you can, add these few other things in here. These are just kind of some other tidbits you can throw in. I didn't do them because I felt like at the time it wouldn't have gone over well. But like if you've got if your club's got a newsletter, offer to do, feature park of the month. And one of the things, once we did our club website, when we decided that POTA was going to become a prominent thing on our website and as a club function, one of our club members came to me and said, "Hey, there's no resource out there for sharing your POTA gear." And I was like, "Well, hey, that's an awesome idea. Let's do POTA bag of the month." And so we have people in our club that contribute, and we have a form they fill in, they submit their pictures if they got some video, and then we slap up a page. And so if you want to see what that looks like, go up to, it's Granite State Amateur Radio Club. It's under the POTA section. I got Shannon's interest there. From there, you can see, and actually, I'll just screen share here. That way everybody can get a feel for it. So let me go back over here. Let me drag this out of here. And so I'll show you and share with this.
Yeah, I think our like little scene might actually be frozen. We don't
Oh,
look frozen, but the chat's not scrolling anymore, and the whiteboard is not updating. So I don't know what is happening there.
oh, weird. I see the chat scrolling.
Oh,
It might
really?
be, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
I guess
We're
it's
still
just
good.
on my screen.
Okay. So let me just switch the scene here. Really go back over to screen share real quick. So let me pull this up here. And my apologies for any of our club members that might be part of this as well. But let me go to the page and show you what I mean by this. So we did something super simple. And let me bring this back here. It's not on top of us. So there we go. If we go up to club activities, parks on the air, and it's not prominent right in the front, but yeah, excuse my picture being on the front. That's what was available for photos. there is a section here on our website called POTA kits, and people can submit their POTA kits and everything that they have in the setup of their bag. So you might see Grouch is there. He submitted his bag, and they posted photos and a description and the kit details and all the radios and everything. And it's really just a awesome resource for someone who be like, hey, what do you have in your bag? Well, hey, go up to our club website and you can see what I have for the list here. And it was it's been a big hit. It's been a lot of folks have been just really excited. I see a lot of the traffic. People go to this site and they're like, wow, this is really cool. And so, it gives you, something to kind of take home with you, and look offline and maybe think how you might want to build your POTA kit, and get it running. And, you can kind of get the insider baseball of someone's actual setup. It's like, oh yeah, Paul uses a Kintara fishing rod versus, Deer Commander 10-meter mast kind of thing. And, he runs a Reliance end-fed, antenna versus a vertical, so it's a great resource. So if you can start to kind of build something like that in your own club, and again, it just takes a little bit of time yourself. And, this is where I'll put on my computer IT hat, use ChatGPT to help you out. If you're trying to come up with wordsmithing, really great opportunity to, kind of, leverage and take some of the pressure of having to create content. And show me. There we go. There we go. Man, technology today. You see us now? We're good. You're good. I'm good. You see us, Shannon? All set?
I see you.
Okay. That's
You
all that
see
matters.
me?
It's just
Do
you
they
and I in
see
this.
us? That's the important thing.
Yeah, you give us a 1 in there in the
It does-
chat. Let us know that we are back. Thank you, Ted. I see you. We're back there. Good. All right. Yeah, technology, man. It's just what it is. All right. So yeah, start there. Kind of think about, encouraging and showcasing people that are part of the the activities you're already doing, because it just gets them more encouraged. They then want to encourage more others, and you just kind of create this feedback loop. So it's very much a good thing to kind of build from. The one thing that I'm trying to think of where we can kind of go with this one. So if you've maybe tried some of these activities and felt like, yeah, it just didn't, it didn't float, it didn't, stick, whatever be the case, I'm going to try to give you some other things that you could try to maybe piggyback with. So say like the club you're a part of is more, say, involved in maybe fox hunting, or, they love food, everything they do pretty much, they should become a food club versus a ham radio club kind of thing. When you read all of their materials and all their activities that they do, everything's got a food focus. Hopefully I'll give you a couple of things here that you can tie into that might be your in or your foothold into maybe making POTA more prevalent in your current club. So what we're going to do is first one here. Let me just give you a couple here. So these kind of came up in the chat here. I saw a few of them fly by. First one is tie into POTA fox hunts. If your club does fox hunts, POTA is a great way to do fox hunts in a POTA park. You can dovetail and do the fox hunt for those that love to do transmitter hunting. Or you can, schedule a POTA event after the fox hunt or before. But try to integrate, 2 activities that are radio focused into one event. And I guarantee you might get some of those people to cross over into the POTA realm. I have a lot of friends in our clubs that are very much, they love fox hunting. They do, that's their kind of jam. And so when we get them involved in POTA, they come often. I mean, they aren't bringing their full kits. They're not always out there, but they're always thinking in the back of their mind, like, hey, I eventually want to do POTA. And it's just a matter of that whole plant the seed, let it grow, figure out what you need to do to maintain it. Other things back again around that food thing, follow a monthly breakfast with a quick activation. We actually do this in our own. We have a Wednesday breakfast It's kind of an informal thing. Like we have a lot of our older guys, the retired folks in our club that have now become, we'll say, POTA acquired. I hear a lot of times I'll be like, oh, it's 9 o'clock. I got to go start my workday. They're like, oh, it's 9 o'clock. Hey, we're going to go down to a park and we're going to go activate. I just bought my FX4 CR. I want to go try it at a park kind of thing. And that warms my heart because at that point, we've broken the barrier of like, oh, I'm never going to do it to, hey, he's out there doing it now, or she's out there, doing it now, or they're both going together to do it kind of thing. And so, yeah, try to encourage that and do that either with you and somebody else and do it a one-on-one kind of thing, or, try to maybe get 3 or 4 people to go out and do a park, on a monthly breakfast or a weekly breakfast or whatever be the case, mix it up, find those opportunities, find those holes. So I'm going to take a break. You got any feedback you want to add?
Yeah, no, so I was just going to throw out there, we've kind of gone down all these different tangents, and we started, with one of the most important things, right, of like food, feeding people. But let's not forget some of the other, basic necessities, right? Accessibility for some of these people in our clubs who maybe aren't quite as mobile or as agile as we are.
Mhm.
Maybe making sure that the parks have adequate parking, maybe paved pathways, or
Yeah.
picnic tables close to the parking lot, basic things like that. And also, some kind of sanitary facilities, restrooms, especially if we're feeding people, we're giving them coffee. Nothing can wreck a POTA activation quicker than having to use the loo.
Hmm.
So, having a restroom there that's, open, clean, again, accessible, easy to use, some very important points to keep in mind when you're planning a POTA and trying to get your club into POTA.
You mean I can't pick a wildlife management area that I have to hike 3 miles into for my first POTA
Yeah,
meetup?
probably not if you want to try to get, the people in your club who are already POTA resistant.
Yeah, keep it simple for sure. All right, so let's I apologize for we've been jumping again. The goal with this was really just kind of keep it very high level to get you thinking, because to say there's a one step plan that fits, or multi-step plan that fits every scenario is kind of short-sighted, because every club's different. And, you obviously know your club, or at least experience the club in a certain way that, might be different from mine, and, definitely different from Shannon. So, some of them might share a lot of the same references or some of the same struggles, but then, some of them can be very, very challenging in a different way. So use this as this kind of a bigger roadmap, and take bits and pieces of it, because you might be at a different, stage everywhere along the way. So when we're kind of plugging away, so the last one was basically, and this kind of came up too as well a lot in the chat, is what I know as an Elmer program. It's more referred to now as a mentor program. But both of those words generate a negative connotation in a lot of people's minds, because they feel like they have to be the subject matter expert on something before they get that title. And let me tell you in advance, you do not have to have all of your ducks in a row. You do not have to have all of the answers and questions memorized to be able to be a mentor or an Elmer. The idea of a mentor and Elmer, especially in POTA, is to just come alongside that person and just show them what you know, and let them ask questions, let them participate, let them be part of it. And then slowly just, continue to work through whatever, ignites them or whatever excites them. And, Grouch for a long time, he only did FT8, and he refused to talk on a mic. And then we took him out to a couple of POTAs, and the man would never shut up. Like, he just loves POTA, and he will never go do FT8. Like, he's like, I will never do FT8 on the field. This is boring than watching paint dry. So, there's somebody we kind of, brought from the dark side over to, sideband. And now he's out there, doing the same thing. He's being a mentor. I know Shannon does that a lot with, I'm sure, a boatload of people that, she was on fire, definitely from the 24-hour POTA. There was many people that she was just like, hey, come on over and do this, and, get them involved. And so, yeah, it is it requires no prior understanding except a passion for, what you like to do in ham radio, especially with POTA. Okay, so here's a couple of strategy things that I kind of want to give you. And these are just kind of food for thoughts for you. So we're going to talk again. And these are what I got 3 here, 4. I got 5. Wow, actually, no, I got 6. We're going to share the quick 6 I have. So first one I have, which I find is very important that you might want to keep word of, is don't sell POTA. This is super important. You're not there to be the spokesperson for POTA. You're not there to be the voice for POTA. Let the organization do that. If they want to come in and, train a club, just share your experience. Let POTA sell itself, because the idea is that if your passion for POTA gets exhibited, it'll leak out to others. People will recognize that. People will see that. People will latch onto it, and they'll be like, I want to try it. I want to be part of that. I want to get involved, and as long as you're genuine with it, then you're never going to sell POTA, because you'll just feel like that's icky. I don't know about you. Like, have you ever felt like, when you're, told to sell something that, like we'll say, like when I was a Boy Scouts, candy bars, I was forced to sell these gross candy bars. And I had to pitch it in a way like, oh, these are the most yummiest candy bars in the world. I'm sure Girl Scouts feel the same way with Girl Scout cookies sometimes.
But Girl Scout cookies are actually delicious. So
they, most of them. There's 1 or 2 flavors that I'll toss out there, but yeah. Lemon.
I will say that genuine passion for the hobby or an aspect of the hobby can be felt and is infectious. So, if we weren't passionate about POTA ourselves, then we wouldn't be here talking about POTA every week, right?
Yeah, 100%. 1,000% for sure.
So
I'd be doing an antenna review or something. But.
I don't think you have to try to sell it like a used car salesman. If someone just really isn't that interested, like, why we don't have to try to pressure somebody into our, our
system.
right. Like, if someone's not that interested in POTA, let's not try to pressure them into it. And, they have their thing, we have our thing.
Yep. Yeah. So these are just some of the things that we already kind of touched upon. Again, start with willing people that are willing to help you kind of move the needle forward. Again, small activations go a long way. Take the photos, capture the moments. Those are important. Bring your logs and photos so you can share that information, because I don't know about you, like, I get super excited when I hear a ham, was able to get 150 contacts in 60 minutes. Like, that's a hard process to do. That's a lot of drinking from the fire hose, but it's an awesome experience too, as well. And so you want to capture that and share that. And then back to what Shannon and I have already said, is enthusiasm is always going to spread, very much. If you're enthusiastic about it, and that's, one of the things, that we are definitely, here, obviously, because we do Brew and Activate, but there's a lot of people in the chat that are very much that way. I know a bunch that I can name all the way through that list that are all the same way. They're all passionate about POTA, and they're willing to talk about it anytime and share it with anybody.
Yeah, and then, so one of the things actually that got that one gentleman, his name's Brian, KB1, oh gosh, I can't even remember his call sign. I'm going to feel bad now. LBK, I think it was. He's been a ham for like 20 something years, but he wasn't active for a while. And he heard me talking on the repeater on the N1 HSY Topsfield repeater when I was like, on my way to and from POTA. And he heard me talking about it on the PokeNet, and then he ended up joining into the PokeNet, and he was the one that, he was interested in POTA. What is it? How do you do it? I want to do it. So he was the one that sort of inspired the POTA meetup. So talking about it, even not just within your club, right? But if you talk about it on the local repeaters, if you, call out when you're driving, this is my call sign mobile on my way to POTA, coming back from POTA. letting, joining in on daily or weekly nets and saying, well, what did you do in ham radio this week? Well, I went and did a POTA, and this is who I contacted, and I got as far west as this, as far east as this, as far north and as far south. And that's usually, what I kind of give is my little bit of a POTA rundown. And that gets people interested. Like, oh, you went out in a park and you only had 20 watts and a vertical antenna whip, and you made all those contacts. Like, I didn't know you could do that on POTA. So, then that kind of gets people, a little bit more interested in it too.
Very much so. Yeah, 100%. The more you just be infectious about it, and no matter what platform you're in, repeaters, on the internet, whatever, it's going to shine through for sure, 100%. Both I could say both you and I are very much 100% witness to a lot of those. I can't tell you how many conversations I've had about POTA very early on, and people are just like, oh, they don't stop talking about it even after I've kind of moved on to something else. So it's just really cool. All right. So another strategy is making it about learning and not changing the club. Don't use words like "I want to change you," because I don't know if you're in a relationship and you've ever said that to your spouse or a partner. Yeah, tell me how that goes over as a ton of bricks. Same thing goes with a bunch of people in the club that have been doing the same thing over and over again. You're not changing it about. You're just introducing and making it more about learning. So, say you want to practice HF skills, because that's exactly what you're doing. You're learning how to be a better operator. You're getting new licensees on the air. So that solves, the biggest point that we brought up earlier in the show is that, ham radio is dying. We need to bring youth in. Well, that solves that problem, or starts to help solve that problem. Support the MCOM side. I'm not an MCOM person. There are people in this chat and the people that I, talk in the club that love MCOM. And they do it through Aries and all of the other Skywarn stuff and whatever. For me, not my cup of tea, but that's a great way to get them integrated, because they're learning to apply all of the same skill sets. They're doing everything that they needed to prepare to be available for when an emergency does arise. And I'm sure they're very prepared, because we've had a few Aries folks show up with their trailers, like I said, at a POTA meetup, and it's like, why are we setting up 40-foot antennas? And like, this is a little overkill, but at the same time, it's okay. Let it happen. And then, the biggest thing from that is, like, old school folks are going to respond to it in a better way than it being treated like as the latest whiz bang novelty kind of thing. If you tote it as like, oh, it's going to be revolutionary and it's like the next thing next to, the Ginsu 2000 and sliced bread, well, it's not going to, stick as well if you make it like, hey, it's a interaction. It's another great facet of this hobby. And, let me tell you why it's such a great a facet of it. So that's always a good strategy to kind of think of. So our next one here, and we got 3 more to go after this. Oh, I can get rid of my prompts here. All right. Giving stubborn members a role. Oh my gosh. How hard is it to, get a toddler to, move and do something? Any parent knows what that's like, and trying to motivate them. It's like literally trying to roll a stone, up a hill. But, stubborn members, they like to feel like they're still a part of the club, even though they might have phased out or done less in the hobby, or just exist for a different reason in the club's, membership status. They don't want to be replaced. So make them feel useful. Don't turn them against you, but turn them into, I hate to use the phrase, an asset in the sense that they can be like, hey, Eric hung out with me and I got the chance to play POTA and make an activation or make a contact or watch him do this and ask questions. And he wasn't a jackhole. Sorry, Sean. But I'll take a phrase there. He wasn't a jackhole, and he didn't tell me to go look it up in a manual. He was helpful in the whole process. Make them feel useful, and I guarantee they will turn around and come back with hey, you need to go see Eric when they see a new club member, because at that point you've started up or ignited a new fire in them that they want to go out and be part of. But if you've got a few of those folks that have shown up, know that they're not going to be your sprinters. If we're using a running marathon here, they aren't going to be the ones that are going to be go out and doing everything and setting up antennas and and everything, they're going to kind of come, they're going to sit and they're going to observe and they're going to kind of chime in from time to time, maybe carry on a conversation, get them engaged, get them to be, maybe the control op because they've got skills. They've been in ham radio probably a lot longer than you have. Don't dismiss that. Help them tune antennas if they bring their own gear. Like we had a couple of club members early on bring their ATAS and he wanted to tune it up on a stand and, deal with all of that. And so be part of those conversations, help them out, give them pointers, tips, learn yourself, don't feel like you should, be the subject matter expert and then ignore everybody else. Teach proper logging, especially if they can do that. They've done it because they had to maintain station logs a long time because it was a requirement of the FCC. Not today, but they know a good way to log and a good paper way to log too as well. So, if you're like Shannon and you like paper logging, then, they might be a good asset to be able to kind of teach that as a backup strategy. Yes. And I want to find the Elmer that taught you that, and I'm going to drag him out. No, just kidding. And then get them to supervise the setup. Some of them might be a little rough around the edges, but, help them soften a little bit, but give them something of an active role that they can manage themselves and be part of it. Because if they're able to participate, they're able to feel like they're needed and wanted and respected, then they are going to support you in the long run. They're going to stand in the gap when you want to do more POTA in your club and you want to bring POTA in as a core, mission kind of focus for the club itself. They'll be the ones to say, yeah, I want to support Eric in this. And I want to, support Shannon to moving us forward to make this part of our, club DNA.
Well, and really the more bodies you can have, right? Like even if their sole job is to kind of, maybe their job is to be the greeter and greet new people as they come over. Or their job is to just, chat people up while they're waiting to operate on the mic, right? Like that's an important job too.
Yeah,
And,
100%.
The more buzz and activity you create around your little POTA activation, that's gonna create more buzz and activity. People that might just be coming to the park that aren't ham radio operators that are just coming to enjoy the park are gonna see all these people, laughing and smiling and having a good time. And they're gonna be like, hey, what's going on over there? I want to go check that out.
Yep. 100%. Yeah, that is critical. You trap more flies with honey versus bug zapper, as they say. So I don't know. I don't know what I'll have to go back. Somebody send me a book of phrases and
more flies with honey than vinegar.
Is that yeah? Yeah, we'll go with yours. All right. So you might have that one stubborn or couple in your club. Well, don't treat them with the same disrespect you're kind of getting back from them. Treat with them with more respect, but be what's the Ted Lasso phrase? Don't be judgmental, but be curious. That's kind of the motto that I say you should apply to this. So if you find someone who shows up, they kind of roll in and they're just kind of the lid, the jackhole, the stubborn curmudgeon. Ask them, some questions that might get them to break out of that little, shell or the bubble that they've created. And, one way to do that is like, hey, do you want to come supervise? Do you want to come, check out the first outing, make sure we've got our antennas set up right and that we're doing everything that we need to be safe, kind of create that environment for them. And then that includes them versus excluding them. So always thinking that way. And especially with the folks, maybe it might be the leadership, think in that same way. Get the leadership to come and say, hey, come make sure if we, do this event that, you can see that we're doing this in the proper ways. And maybe you can suggest some, things as you kind of observe. So, I'll let them provide feedback and take it with, the vein of that. It might come across harsh and rough around the edges, but it still had some merit behind it. Try to pull out the good stuff out of it with the intention that, you'll build rapport with these people and you'll make them feel like, again, you're respecting them. You're honoring their life, that they've been in the club. And some of them have been there for just as long as the club has been, as a club, ARL club. And so, work in that sense and you will make more friends and long-time relationships with those folks which will then be an asset later when you want to start to really, prove, what you want to do with POTA or whatever your goal or plan is. All right. Last two, is, start with the easiest. This is again back to kind of, I think, for what I was trying to do with parks, and we kind of alluded to this, but this is really, I need to stress this because I think as POTA operators and activators, we get so excited about being in the moment that we'll spend 4.5 hours trying to make 10 contacts because we're not leaving, because we know what's going to happen if we make 10 contacts, or we're in a pile up and it's going 2 hours long. Kind of when you're doing this, the idea is to introduce people and give them a taste. Do not give them the taste of a 4.5 hour field activation. try to boil it down in smaller chunks. So, try to eliminate as many things as you can. Try to keep it under 1 hour or 2 hours. A lot of times it'll kind of flush its way out that way. People will show up very early and then they'll be out of there within an hour or so. So it is one of those things that you just want to make sure that you be respectful of that, but in essence, it will go a long way for the purposes of, moving forward to really get them engaged and be part of the, the whole POTA community. Then my last one here, feel free to throw this up here. Okay. So, the last one here, come on, silly whiteboard. Really wish I had a marker I could draw, but you probably won't want to see my handwriting. Come on, highlight, paste. There we go. So this one is an important one for me. And the reason I'll say is pretty simple. You're going to want to publicly thank people that have attended, especially the executive board. So if your club's a very, we'll say, formal club, and they kind of do everything by the book, and there's a lot of the way we do this as a club is XYZ, and it's pretty well laid out. Well, don't disregard encouraging and sending good vibes and thank yous and follow-ups that encourage and thank those that gave you the opportunity. And I did this initially on with our leadership in the club, just basically saying, hey, thanks for coming. Thanks for coming to the event. Thanks for letting me, talk about this. If you've got more, questions around this, please, I'm here to answer any of that stuff. Be welcoming, be open, and be open to criticism too, as well, because that might come across, in some phase of this whole process, because you might step on some toes, and that does happen. But if you're able to respond in kind, not returning it in a negative way, but say, hey, I apologize, or hey, we can try to do this better, or we can work towards letting you be more involved. Whatever be the case, do it in a way that is encouraging, but at the same time thanking those that gave you the opportunity to kind of do this, and it will go a long way. I know a lot of the people then started to trust, and trust was being built, and started to trust me more, which then it gave me more opportunities to kind of start to do the things we were doing in our club for POTA activation. So it's always good to, to basically just celebrate those wins and go from there. I don't know if I want to get into this because this is kind of some of my hit list, but if you're interested, over on n1jur.com under the POTA field guide, there is this checklist, and I created a probably 20-point checklist that basically has everything you need for a smooth activation for when you do your outing. And this is just as best as I can kind of put together. I mean, it's not all encompassing because I'm sure I missed one or two things, but it covers things like, like Shannon alluded to, making sure the park's all set up, making sure you have adequate access to handicap parking and paths and bathrooms and food and covered shelters for, getting out of the sun, bringing suntan lotion, all of those little bits and pieces that we all kind of don't always think about when we're doing our own activations, but would be very helpful in the sense of, doing a larger kind of POTA meetup. And so it really is just, the list itself is something to get you going. So you can go over and check that out. It's downloadable. So feel free to grab that if you want. The last thing I guess I wanted to talk about, and Shannon, if you've got anything else you want to chime in before I kind of wrap this up.
No, I mean, everything you said there makes perfect sense. And I think that sort of mirrors what we already said. When you're planning your POTA club meetup and you're trying to get people involved, maybe don't, pick a brand new park that you've never been to yourself
Ah, yes,
for a
that's a good
POTA
point.
meetup. Maybe go somewhere where you're sort of familiar with the surroundings, maybe, or scope it out beforehand. And in terms of, having sunscreen, like, maybe make sure that you bring some of that stuff, bring sunscreen, bring bug spray, not just
Water.
for
Yep.
yourself, but, to share with other people. Because I think I mentioned that I ran into that not on a POTA, but on a fox hunt that I went to over, I think it was in Ipswich. And the mosquitoes were just off the
Oh,
charts, where mosquitoes love me for whatever reason. They just always have. And I literally could not complete this fox hunt because the mosquitoes were just so bad and I was getting eaten alive and I didn't have any bug spray. So,
oh,
definitely I'm going to be adding to my, POTA trunk, which is basically just the trunk of my car is filled with POTA gear. I'll be adding to my POTA trunk bug spray.
yep, 100%. So, yeah, that list is definitely a good starter, and we'll definitely add to it as we kind of build out that wiki. So, if you got stuff you want to submit, I highly encourage you to head on over to our Discord, like I said before, and chime in on Brew Activate's channel there, and add to that list and I'll make sure I build into those extra ads so we can just keep pouring into it. But what I'm going to leave you with this, and so this is my experience, and this is firsthand from me. POTA obviously recharges a club. I have been witness to it. I've seen it several times. I've actually, once we had POTA being started in our club, I ended up having other leadership and other clubs reach out to me and say, hey, please come to our club and talk about POTA. We're interested. We want to get going. We need the help. And so come do a presentation. And so I've always had, that kind of fallout with the purpose that it's just building everywhere. And that's really what my bigger goal was. It's like, I didn't want to have my club have the corner market on POTA because no one should. First and foremost, everybody has the right to do POTA. There's not one club. You don't have to be certified in any which way or fashion. But the other thing is that POTA brings people together. And so this is the kind of the things you can take away from this. We all know it builds real relationships and real friendships. I can't tell you. I mean, Shannon's got videos with Grouch with them doing Robert Frost and why did I just forget the other park that you guys did to
Russell Abbott.
Russell Abbott, yeah. And she's been at the 24-hour POTA, which is exactly another example of that with our Live Free and Ham guys over there. So the friendships are what I first and foremost love. I mean, I love doing ham radio. That's just the sweeter part is like we can all just talk about ham radio, be geeky or nerdy. On top of, just hanging out and sharing our favorite beverage over a campfire and talking about our war stories or, sharing our lives or whatever. And that just makes that connection so much sweeter for me and is really just why I love doing, and being part of the ham radio community. The other part is it brings inactive members back. And this is something I will, bank my life on because I have seen a growth in our club where we said out front and we were, letting the rubber meet the road and doing POTA and making POTA part of our DNA and bringing more and more new hams in, bringing in existing hams that, may have not played a lot of radio in the hobby, but were there for the friendship side of things. It just really started to now pull a lot of our older membership back. All the people that just kind of went away for a little while because they didn't find any interest. They're all coming back. They're all like, wow, this is really cool. I want to be more involved in this. And so it attracts very much. And we all have been witness to that. And I know firsthand that that's very much going to happen if you're going to, kind of set out and do this in your own club. it creates excitement. I mean, dude, we're talking about this. We're passionate about what more do you need for that? I mean, if you're passionate, you're going to find people who are passionate about POTA, and you're going to talk about it on the repeaters on your drive into work. You're going to talk about it when you're at a POTA. You're going to talk it when you're not at a POTA. You're going to talk to your wife or partner about it, and they're going to be like,
they're not even
I don't want to hear it anymore.
operator.
Exactly. They're not going to want to hear about it, but they're, or eventually you're like my wife, she'll be like, hey, we haven't done a Parks on the Air activation. You want to go do one? And, when I first had that happen in my life, I was like, what is wrong with her? What ulterior motive does she have? And it's like, no, she just wants to be out there. She likes me doing, this hobby and that aspect of it. And she likes hearing the conversations, and the people that I'm talking to. And so, yeah, it just builds excitement.
Well,
and
you
then
want to hear like one quick little funny story. So, my late husband, Peter, God rest his soul, I know that he loved me and he was so proud of me. And even though he didn't want to be a ham radio operator, he was so into it that he used to talk about my radio stuff to his coworkers, and he used to talk about it to his customers too. And he actually, found out that like some of his customers were ham radio operators, because he would be like, oh yeah, my wife's a ham radio operator. She goes out to these parks and she makes all these contacts, and she talked to France the other day, or she talked to Hawaii or whatever it was. So,
Yep.
I hear these little stories about him that, even though we may think that, our non-ham loved ones, they might be sick of, hearing about us talk about radio, but really secretly, I think they love it.
Yeah, that is very 100% true. My wife, a teacher, has no, interconnects, but as she comes home and says the same thing, she's like, "Oh, I told so and so you're a ham radio operator," and they're like, or here's an interesting catch: my son's, who is not a ham radio operator, does not want anything to do with ham radio. Often thinks Dad's a little weird when he does ham radio. His girlfriend's father is a ham radio operator, and when he said, "Yeah, my dad's doing ham radio because I happen to be watching something on TV," and she's like, what? A ham radio? My dad's a ham radio operator. And I'm like, okay. And so now I'll watch my YouTube favorites on YouTube, and she will come in and she'll be like, hey, I haven't seen K Murder on in a while. What's he up to? And I'm like, girl,
how do you know who that is?
Because, well, she pays attention. She's really good about watching, and
See, so
observing.
maybe your son's not going to get licensed, but maybe your son's girlfriend
Maybe.
is, but maybe then she'll get him to get licensed.
Maybe, you never know. So we'll leave that chapter open for a little while. So no need to get marriage on the plate for a little bit here, at least. So we'll put a pin on that one.
I didn't say anything about marriage.
I know. I can see the chat rolling by, and I'm just waiting for someone to offer their minister services or something like that. And the last one is just it turns the club into a community. Everybody who joins a ham radio club does it for the community aspect, no matter what aspect of the hobby they might be in, whether it's CW, Morse code, radios, kit building, whatever. If the club's not really doing that, then it kind of gets dormant. And so POTA brings that back, because it's not just one little small aspect of it. It's encompassing everything. And that's the cool part about POTA, is like, you get to talk about radios. Yeah, you get to talk about building antennas. You get to talk about amplifiers. You get to talk about, whatever. You fill in the blank. And I guarantee there's an aspect in the POTA side of it that you can talk to. And, you will never be, at a loss for having a conversation. So it builds that community atmosphere, and then it invigorates the club and starts things, back growing. And that's what you want to see, because in essence, that's going to get your club to a place that, you'll look back in 4 or 5 years and go, that was really cool. That was awesome to see. And POTA did all that. So, all right. Wow, that was a lot. Hopefully you guys enjoyed some of that stuff. It was useful. I saw a lot of people flying by there in the chat. So hopefully I didn't bore you to death with my whiteboard sessions, but it was some good stuff. It's, Shannon and I are passionate about this stuff. We love doing POTA. And I know a lot of you guys that are in the chat, are the same ways too. So, hopefully you can take some of this stuff and go back to your own clubs or, groups and start to, put them into motion.
Yeah, exactly. And, if anybody is ever in the New England, Eastern Massachusetts area, then by all means, please hit me up, hit Eric up. Let's,
100%.
meet up for POTA.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. And so for those that might need it, here's the Discord link there real quick. So head on over to our Discord. This is the Live Free and Ham Discord. If you haven't, or if you click on the link and like, why am I not going to N1JUR? It's our community. Shannon's in there. I'm in there. We have got a lot of different people, all kind of just being part of it. So yeah, come join in the fun. Head over to Brew and Activate, channel and say hello. Yeah, we'll keep adding to this story because in essence, this is the stuff that helps the future generations, the 30 somethings that are younger than us that are just coming up in the ham radio ranks. And they're going to be dealing with some of the similar stuff that we deal with and trying to deal with clubs. Well, let's make it a little easier for them so they can get, fueled up and moving forward. And then the last two pieces, like we mentioned earlier, and I'm just trying to find the links here because, I'm a little slow, is our shack roast. So, like I said, I'd love to see your shacks. Come on, all you POTA guys, this is an opportunity. You have an opportunity to submit your shack to become the POTA, king of, the shack roast there. And there will be little trophies. My daughter's printing 3D designs, so I'm not going to reveal them quite yet. So, each of the categories will have one. We'll also do some giveaways, but in essence, the whole thing is up on Live Free and Ham's website. So check that out. Come register. Nothing costs. Just submit your photos, submit your shack. And we'd love to have you. I know Mike, who is in the chat here, M2MAK, has upped his, Baofeng and Miller Lite version of his shack to now a Coors Light and 2 Baofeng. So, we're definitely looking forward to it. And then the last thing, like we mentioned earlier in the show, hey, Shannon and I, we're just going to pick this back up in about 2 hours or 3 hours here, and we're going to roll right into Northeast Ham Radio. So come check us out. That is our Thanksgiving episode, we'll say. We'll say anything more, but you definitely want to come and check it out because we're definitely going to have some fun over there for sure.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the title of the stream is Giving Thanks and Having Dranks. So if that doesn't tell you how fun and exciting. Oh, I stocked the fridge. I got some mead, I got some cider, I got some Truly.
Oof. All right, I'm a little behind. I'm going to have to run out before we start again. So, yeah, cool. With that, guys, this was totally awesome. Again, thanks for Ted. I think Ted was the one who posted this as a viewer submitted topic. So thank you again. And if you got something you guys want us to dive into, again, feel free to post that over in the Brew and Activate Discord channel, and we will get it into the rotation here. And so as always, please, you can help support myself. I know Shannon's growing there in her channel, but we have set this channel, this stream to a totally, ad-free. So hopefully you guys enjoyed all of that. So with that, obviously your super chats and your memberships definitely help support us and keep us going. So all of those that did get memberships, I appreciate you. I got all those logged. And so I'll send a welcome and say hello to you guys and get you into the loop there. And those that, have sent and posted super chats, I appreciate all the support you guys have done for the channel. And as always, again, I can't do this channel without a lot of the partnerships I have. So go check out Reliance Antenna, check out Mad Dog Coils and Spool Tenna. Those 3 guys all help support the channel. And they all have given me codes and basically discounts. So you can check all that stuff over at n1jur.com under the discounts tab if you want to pick all that. Oh, yeah. And I keep forgetting, and I apologize, Halibut Electronics. So if you're a big kit builder, Halibut's got a code there. You can get some savings, especially during the Black Friday stuff that's kind of coming in Christmas season and stuff. Every little bit counts, as they say. So definitely, check that out and be part of that. And as always, if you haven't already subscribed, and I know you're already subscribed to me, you got to head over and subscribe to Shannon. Click the link, head over and become part of a subscription there and, support her and her channel as well. And I think that's it. So as always, we get together every Friday mornings at 10 o'clock. This was a rare occasion we had to Swift, but 10 o'clolock's Friday morning.
Although I have to say, we have like 21 people watching us or something.
We usually do on a morning too, which is very surprising. I didn't know there were many. Yeah.
I don't know.
We haven't broken our record yet.
Okay. It seemed like we had extra people. I was thinking maybe we should change our stream time. I saw
a head pop by.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, if you have, definitely come be part of Brew and Activate. And we'd love to have you as a regular there. And so with that, we'll see you guys next week. Always please like, share, subscribe all of our channels, and please share this with others, people that if you haven't already. And if they are POTA enthusiasts, they'll come just as much as, everybody else has been here. So with that, next time, keep your radios on, the PTT down, and POTA on. We'll see you in 3 hours.
Yeah, POTA on. 2 hours, I think.
2 hours, right? Okay, yeah, 4:51. All right. We's out of here.
Peace.